Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Very appreciative of it. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
I watched it yesterday, and I have to say I was quite surprised by it because I'd read the synopsis, and then I'd seen obviously you were in it, and then Jason Sudeikis. I thought, okay, I like when people that are known for comedies step out and do something a little bit different. I like that, but then wasn't at all expecting everywhere that it went, because it starts out as what you would expect, and then it doesn't, and then it twists again, and then it goes, but not just twists for the sake of it, real twists, especially with your character. So I just wondered, when you read the script for the first time, how enjoyable that experience was, and that did it surprise you in the way that it surprised me and I'm sure other people?
Well, if you found yourself every, I don't know, 30 pages going, that's whoa, then yes, it did hit you the same way that it hit me. I was like, this is so gory. Oh my God, it's too gory. I can't do this film. But then I watched Big Bad Wolves, and then I saw Aaron's style, and then I was like, oh, okay, I love it. I'm a big fan of Roy Anderson. I don't know if you are familiar with him.
I've heard his name before. For sure.
He's got such a macabre sense of humor, and his visual style it's like the neutral version of Wes Anderson. It's like the neutral palated Wes Anderson. And I feel like Aaron is in a similar camp, where he's got quite a macabre sense of humor, and he loves to play with gore in a way that's digestible, that you can palate. And he does it often through giving you a beautiful visual palette, and like all of these other sort of sweet, tender, redeemable things in a film. And so the plot twist, there's nobody who has seen the film so far who hasn't, the first thing they say is like, I was so surprised, I didn't expect that, which is perfect. That's what we want. We want people to be surprised. I don't know about you, but in 2022, with I can't even remember the figure now, but like how many pieces of content are being made right now between streaming services and films, and like the amount of content that's out there. It's so hard to surprise people anymore. Everyone's seen everything, but nobody's seen this movie.
No, nobody's seen this movie. I have to say, because I'm such a huge fan of comedians. Some of my heroes are like Steve Martin and Jim Carrey, and I love when they step out a little bit. So Robin Williams, when they step out and do something not just dramatic, but slightly darker, slightly more completely opposite to what they usually do. There's something really refreshing about that. So for you as an actor alongside someone like Jason Sudeikis, I can imagine in between he was Jason Sudeikis, because he's a lovely, lovely gentleman. But was it surprising to you to see him, and how impressed were you to see him not just doing it, but to take on something like this?
Well, first of all, no, he wasn't Jason Sudeikis in between.
Oh.
No, he was method. And I was surprised. I was completely shocked, because wow. I met Jason to decide whether or not we were going to do the film together. And he was Jason Sudeikis. And he was like funny and charming and light and loose and like everything you would expect Jason to be. And we were both like, cool, this is easy. This is going to be great. We know how to do this. And then we got there to make the film, and we got on set, and it was like, where's Jason? Who is this guy? And where did he come from? And so there was a lot of like last minute shuffling and kind of sort of rethinking and reworking between Aaron and I, because I don't think either of us expected him to bring the gravitas that he brought. When I read the script, I read it with Jason in my mind, like the Jason we all know and love, like the one that is just always going to be wisecracking and like finding a way to make everything funny. And so not only did he come with that sort of weight, but then logistically and like just by virtue of money and scheduling and everything, we were supposed to film in the thick of the heat of summer. And it was supposed to be this sort of sweaty, noir, westerny feeling movie. And then we ended up having to film in the middle of winter in Dallas. So it was like gray, and there was no leaves, and there was no sun, and it was freezing cold. So even the weather and the atmosphere and the environment was like, whew, just heavy and dark and oppressive. So it went from being this film over here to being this film over here. It was a completely different thing. And then I had to decide whether or not to make the leap and go also to a darker place. And so Aaron and I, we talked about it at length. And the thing that we decided was, yes, I couldn't be too kind of silly, which I wanted to be. But he wanted Annie to be the sunshine in the film. So he wanted her to be that ray of light that would break through all of that heaviness and all of that darkness. And he thought that was such a beautiful portrayal of somebody on death's door, was that they would represent life.
Yeah. When you filmed this, had he started Ted Lasso?
He had finished shooting the first season.
Okay.
The guy was editing and rewriting while we were shooting. So he was so overworked. I mean, I felt so grateful that he was even there, because someone with a less generous spirit would have just said, I'm not coming. Like, he had so much on his plate with Ted Lasso already. But of course, I didn't know what Ted Lasso was yet. I knew he was working on this show, and I knew he had written it, and I know he was his passion project, but I didn't know anything about it. And of course, now I'm a massive fan of it. And I fell in love with that show along with everyone else, but I'd already fallen in love with Jason long before that from making this film. But yeah, he was working on it at the time. He was between season 1 and 2.
I'm just picturing him on like the plane back from the UK thinking to himself, I need to get out of Ted Lasso. I'm just going to go full method on this one. I'm not telling anybody.
Right.
Saying that to himself on a plane somewhere.
You're probably right. I think that it was probably there has to be a massive divide, like a break between Ted Lasso and this guy. And it's going to be, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the draw for you for Annie, because you just mentioned there about her as a character, because obviously she has this, she's obviously only got a certain amount of time to live, but she's so full of life at the same time. And like you say there, she's a character that she brings sunshine into the film. And there's these wonderful scenes, particularly your scenes with Jason, but also with Mike Colter, where you kind of think she should be one way, but she's not. And I kind of found that quite refreshing. Was that fun to play that, given that it's quite a dark subject, but in between it, she's not how you would expect her to be?
It was so fun to play it. And it's why I took the job. I wanted to do, that was the element of Annie that sold me. That was the part of her, that scene. I was like, I have to do this scene. I would kill to do this scene. It was so fun. And it felt like such a great liberation, because I didn't have to play the sort of stoic, capable, heavy, like take control of the situation, badass chick that often I find myself playing, but instead got to play somebody who was just so totally at ease in her own skin and completely in love with life in a way that surprises you over and over and over again, and continues to surprise the other characters around her, to the point where she brings out the humanity in the worst of the men who surround her.
Yeah, I know in some of the Ant-Man films that you, and maybe in the Hobbit films, I'm not too sure, you've maybe done some of your own stunts. Do you do your own bowling? Is this your bowling in this film? Because I have to say, you're pretty darn good.
This is such an embarrassing and fantastic question, because I used to be in a bowling team when I was in my early 20s. I was on a bowling league because I was married and my previous husband wanted us to do it. And I was like, all right, well, I was game for anything in my early 20s. Like, let's go. And I loved it. And I really was quite good at it. I actually had a pretty good average and I was a good bowler. But that was a long time ago. I didn't have my nice 8-pound ball there to roll. It was one of those public places, alleys where it was like the lightest ball they had was 11 pounds. And I was like, I can't even lift this ball. So I have to go do the scene and I'm supposed to bowl a strike. And I gutter the ball every fucking time I throw it. And then Jason, who's supposed to bowl a strike, or he's supposed to put it in the gutter, he steps up mid-scene, in the scene, cameras rolling, grabs a ball and throws a strike first. You.
Did you, in your bowling days, did you all have matching shirts? Did you all have the matching
We didn't have the cute matching shirts.
Yeah.
I did have a bowling bag, though. I did have a leather ball.
Okay.
I had my own ball.
The scene in The Simpsons. I don't know if you've ever seen the scene in The Simpsons when they all go bowling and they're all in like pin, they're all like the bowling shirts together. Just
It was
pictured.
more like the Big Lebowski. We all
Oh
a
dear.
lot of drinking and a lot of casual clothes.
Of course, of course, of course. Although I will say as well, Shire's. I don't know if this is. See, I wish I interviewed him because I was going to ask him if he does his own grab the toy stunts because
I had the same question. That thing's
I can never,
impossible.
as a Brit, I can't work those damn things. Honest to God.
Nobody can. Nobody can. It's a total scam. I told my kids one time at a fair, I was like, you will never, ever get the doll. Don't try it. It's not worth it. So I meant to ask him too, like, did you actually get a bear? You didn't get a bear, did you?
Oh, dearie me. But I mean, obviously, this is the kind of. Do you enjoy? Obviously, you've done the big movies before. This is kind of independently funded. You probably how quickly did you shoot it? And do you enjoy kind of the yin and yang between doing a big Marvel movie or Lord of the Rings to doing something like this? Does it give you a different energy as an actor?
Yeah, I did. I did enjoy it very much. I did two of these little indies in a row. I did one called Crisis, which was about the opioid crisis in 2019. Yeah, 2019, I think, early. And then this was late 2019. I think they were both pretty close to one another. And the thing that I find that is so freeing about those is it's always about the acting. So everything, the whole day is designed around making sure that the performances are everything they need to be, because they're going to carry the film, because they don't have the budget for the big special effects. They don't have the budget for the great locations. They don't have all the bells and whistles. And so really it comes down to us, and we have to make it sing. And that's like, it's a beautiful energy, because it all becomes so much more artistic in the space of the acting. It becomes, you have time to really work the scenes, to rehearse the scenes, to feel them out. And that's the priority every day, all day. And so I find that I feel like I'm more relaxed. Like I can breathe clearer. I know we're going to have time to get it right. And I don't have to come in and worry about whether or not the special effects and the CGI and the imaginary goblin or the whatever is that all that lines up. It's just about the performance. And so I really, really enjoyed that in this film. I mean, it comes with its own challenges, because I get my shorts tight in a knot if people aren't well taken care of, if crews aren't really, really loved and adored and cared for. And sometimes on indies that can be compromised, and that can get hard, where they don't have the budget for things, they don't have the right stuff or whatever. And so the producer in me can kind of get a bit distracted wanting to fix all the problems. But as far as me as the performer, it's so nice. It's such a beautiful space.
Yeah. I have to ask you about the elephant in the room, which is more Marvel coming up. You just finished Ant-Man and the Wasp. You won't tell me anything. Of course, I've done this many years. How people just go, I can't tell you anything about this. But what's it? Working with TM, Sexiest Man Alive, for the third time, where he won Sexiest Man Alive. You got Jonathan Majors back with Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, and a certain Bill Murray. I mean, you probably can't say yes or no to that, but it's what we've heard. We just had Andrew and Toby come back for Spider-Man. So Bill Murray.
I was definitely way out of my league in that film. I was constantly sitting in scenes, pinching myself, going, how the fuck did I get here? There was a mistake in the accounting somewhere. I don't think my name was supposed to be on the roster. It was so fun. And I've always said, because I started my career as somebody with no experience and no training, that my co-stars are my teachers. And I went to a master school in this movie. It was amazing.
And she's officially technically an Avenger now in part 3. She has joined the, helped defeat Thanos.
That's right. That's right. She was technically an Avenger.
Is it just as a final question, will it be bittersweet for you if obviously these things come in trilogies? I'm sure they might do some more, but if this was the last time you were to play Hope and with these guys and everything else, would it be bittersweet? And you'd obviously still, I know you'd still be kind of happy with the fact that you managed to get it, but I can imagine it would be bittersweet to say goodbye if indeed you do in these crazy times where people come back from the dead and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. You never know when you're done with Marvel. it definitely would be bittersweet. I think that if it was the last of the Ant-Man and the Wasp trilogy, then I would secretly, well, publicly, because I'm now saying it out loud, I would hope that that in some way that Hope would show up, you know, in some other aspect of the universe. Like, there are so many incredible stories being told, and there's so much room for her to pop up anywhere. Marvel are expert storytellers. They're expert filmmakers. Tentpole stuff is, believe it or not crazy appealing to me. I generally don't watch those types of movies. I'm much more in the Aharon Keshales, Roy Anderson camp of things. But they are special. They have like it's like they have the magic beans in their office and they're hoarding them. And then every time they plant a bean, a new incredible movie is sprouted. And so it's fun, you know, it's fun being a part of great storytelling, and it's fun doing it with people who are as fantastic as Victoria and Kevin and Lou. And so yeah, I would hope that she would pop up somewhere else, that I'd get to play again at some point. But I also have a 6-year-old son and a 10-year-old son, and they're at that point in life where mama just wants to be close to the nest. I want to be with them. I don't want to miss a blooming second. And so bittersweet, you know, because there's always home calling me whenever I'm off doing these big jobs. I bring my family with me everywhere we go, because there's too many broken homes in Hollywood, and mine won't become one of them. I'm committed to that. But it's, you know, it's hard on the kids moving around. And you go 6 months where I'll leave before they get up in the morning, and I get home after they're already in bed. And so yeah, I don't mind. I'll take a hiatus if I got to take a hiatus, but she's got to come back again sometime.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. They always find a way. Always find a way. Evangeline, legitimately one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Thank you so much for your time. So much fun chatting to you. And maybe our paths will cross next year at a certain Quantum Mania premiere or something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you so much for your time.
So much. I really appreciate it. Great interview. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey